The Valoran Empire had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Their ships were the most beautiful in the galaxy. Gold covered every surface. Bright lights decorated every hull. Their weapons could destroy moons with a single shot. Every species they met either joined them willingly or learned to regret their refusal. Ambassador Zethral stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Light. He watched the small blue planet growing larger on the view screen. Earth. Home of a young species called humans. They had only been traveling through space for 200 years, a baby civilization, nothing special. Admiral Vexthar stood beside him. He was tall, even for a Valoran, with 4 muscular arms and violet skin that shimmered under the bridge lights. His 3 golden eyes watched the planet with mild interest. "Another primitive species," Vexthar said. "They will bow quickly. Look at their orbital stations. So small, so fragile. Their largest ship is barely 1 kilometer long. Our smallest patrol craft is larger than that." Zethral nodded slowly. "We will follow the standard procedure. Show them our fleet. Let them see our power. Once they understand what we offer, they will accept our terms without argument." "And if they refuse?" Vexthar asked. Zethral smiled. It was not a kind smile. No one refuses. Not after they see what we can do. The Valoran communication officer sent a message to Earth. It was polite, but firm. The great Valoran Empire wished to meet with humanity's leaders. They would demonstrate their military strength as a gesture of friendship. They expected human diplomats to attend and witness the display. On Earth, the message arrived at United Fleet Command headquarters in Geneva. Admiral Jack Morrison read it 3 times before setting down his datapad. He was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. The colony wars had lasted 20 years. The Keth swarm had nearly destroyed humanity entirely. Jack had fought in both conflicts. He had buried too many friends to count. His aide, Lieutenant Kate Sullivan, stood waiting by the door. She was young, barely 30, but smart and capable. Jack trusted her completely. "What do you think?" Jack asked. Kate frowned. "They want to scare us. This demonstration is meant to show us we have no chance against them. They will offer protection in exchange for control." "That is exactly what I think," Jack agreed. "They have done this before. The intelligence reports say they have absorbed over 40 species using this method. Show up with a big fleet, perform some impressive tricks, and watch the primitive aliens fall over themselves to surrender." "What are your orders, sir?" Jack stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Swiss mountains were covered in snow. Somewhere beyond those mountains, shipyards were building the next generation of human warships. Somewhere in orbit, the Third Fleet was running combat drills. Humanity had learned hard lessons over the past 2 centuries. They had learned that the universe was not friendly. They had learned that survival required strength. "Contact Ambassador Lisa Grant," Jack said. "Tell her she will lead the diplomatic mission, and tell Admiral Nathan Cross to prepare the Third Fleet for deployment." Kate hesitated. "Sir, the Valoran message specifically requested that we send only diplomatic vessels. They do not want us to bring warships." Jack turned and looked at her. There was no fear in his eyes, only calm determination. "They asked us not to bring warships because they want us to feel helpless. They want us to see their fleet and realize we have no response." He paused. "We have a response. The Third Fleet goes with Ambassador Grant. They will wait at a safe distance until called. And if the Valorans see this as a threat, then they will learn something important about humanity. We do not respond well to threats." Kate nodded and left to deliver the orders. 3 days later, Ambassador Lisa Grant boarded the diplomatic vessel Geneva and departed for the meeting coordinates. She was 45 years old, with sharp features and calm brown eyes. Before becoming a diplomat, She had served in the Navy for 15 years. She had fought against the Keth swarm. She had watched entire colonies burn. Nothing the Valorans could show her would make her afraid. Her security chief, Commander Derek Cole, met her on the observation deck as the ship entered hyperspace. He was a large man with broad shoulders and a face that rarely showed emotion. He had served with Lisa during the Swarm War. They trusted each other with their lives. "The Third Fleet jumped 20 minutes ago," Derek reported. "They will arrive at the secondary coordinates and hold position. Admiral Cross says his ships are ready for anything." Lisa nodded. "Good. How many ships?" 63 vessels, 4 dreadnoughts, including the Defiance, 12 battlecruisers, 22 destroyers. The rest are support ships and carriers." Derek paused. "More than enough to handle 40 Valoran ships if things go wrong." "I hope things do not go wrong," Lisa said quietly. "I would prefer a peaceful solution. Trade agreements, cultural exchange, real partnership." "But you do not expect that." Lisa smiled slightly. "No, I do not. The Valorans have ruled their sector for 3,000 years. They have never met an equal. They do not know how to treat other species as anything but servants or pets. They will try to intimidate us. They will offer us protection we do not need. And when we refuse their terms, they will not understand why." Derek crossed his arms. "Then we show them why." "Yes, then we show them why." The Geneva flew through hyperspace for 3 weeks. Lisa spent the time studying everything humanity knew about the Valoran Empire. Their technology was advanced but stagnant. They had not fought a real war in over 1,000 years. Their ships were powerful, but designed for intimidation rather than combat. They expected enemies to surrender before any real fighting began. Humanity was different. Humanity had spent 2 centuries fighting for survival. First against themselves during the colony wars, then against the Keth swarm, an alien species that had attacked without warning and slaughtered billions. Humanity had nearly gone extinct twice. But they had survived. They had rebuilt. And they had built a fleet that could stand against anything the universe could throw at them. Lisa Grant was not afraid of the Valorans. She was only curious to see how they would react when they realized that humanity was not like the other species they had encountered. Humanity did not bow. Humanity did not surrender. Humanity fought. And humanity won. The Geneva dropped out of hyperspace near the gas giant Kepler 7b. The Valoran fleet was already waiting. 40 ships, gleaming gold under the distant sun. They were beautiful and terrifying and meant to make any observer feel small and helpless. Lisa stood on the observation deck and watched them without expression. The game was about to begin. The Valoran fleet hung in space like a collection of golden jewels. Each ship was a work of art. Their hulls curved in elegant shapes that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. Bright banners hung from their sides, displaying the symbols of the great Valoran houses. Running lights traced patterns across their surfaces, creating displays of light that danced in the darkness of space. Ambassador Lisa Grant stood on the observation deck of the Geneva and studied the alien vessels. She had to admit they were impressive. Beautiful, even. But she noticed something else. Something the Valorans probably did not want her to notice. These ships were designed to look powerful. They were not designed to be powerful. Commander Derek Cole stood beside her, his eyes fixed on a small data pad in his hands. He was tracking the Valoran ships with passive sensors, recording everything he could about their capabilities. "Their flagship is 4 kilometers long," Derek said quietly. "Plasma cannons along the dorsal spine, point defense systems on the flanks, estimated crew of 12,000. "Armor thickness?" Lisa asked. "Minimal. They rely on shields, energy-based defensive systems, probably very effective against plasma weapons." Derek paused and looked up. "Not so effective against kinetic projectiles." Lisa nodded, but said nothing. She filed that information away for later. The view screen at the front of the observation deck flickered to life. Ambassador Zethrall appeared, his violet face arranged in a welcoming smile. His 3 golden eyes sparkled with confidence. "Ambassador Grant," he said warmly, "welcome to this historic meeting. The Valoran Empire is honored by your presence. We hope this will be the beginning of a long and beneficial relationship between our peoples." Lisa returned his smile with a polite one of her own. "Thank you, Ambassador. We are grateful for the invitation. Humanity is always eager to meet new friends among the stars." "Excellent," Zethrall said. "Then please, observe what the Valoran Empire can offer its friends. Admiral Vexthar has prepared a demonstration of our military capabilities. Consider it a gift, a promise of the protection we can provide." The transmission ended, and the demonstration began. The 40 Valoran ships began to move. They separated into groups and executed a series of complex maneuvers. Their movements were perfect. Not a single ship was out of position. They flew in patterns that would have torn apart any fleet that tried to copy them without years of practice. Lisa watched without reaction. Derek tracked everything on his data pad. "Maximum acceleration 42 Gs, he reported. "Their inertial dampeners are good but not exceptional. Their pilots would be paced if they tried anything faster." The Valoran ships completed their formation flying and moved to the weapons demonstration. A series of asteroids had been positioned at various distances from the fleet. The first group of ships targeted the closest asteroids and opened fire. Plasma cannons blazed. Brilliant streams of superheated matter shot across the void and struck the rocky targets. The asteroids exploded into expanding clouds of gas and debris. Nothing remained but dust. "Impressive firepower," Lisa murmured. "Short range," Derek countered. "Those cannons lose effectiveness at anything over 50,000 kilometers, and they need to recharge between shots. I count a 6-second interval between volleys." The demonstration continued. Larger ships targeted larger asteroids. A moon-sized chunk of rock was hit by concentrated fire from the flagship Eternal Light. The plasma burned through the surface and reached the core. The entire object shattered into a billion pieces that scattered across space. Finally, the Valoran fighters launched. Hundreds of small craft poured from the carrier ships and raced through the debris field. They were fast and agile, dodging between tumbling rocks with ease. Their pilots performed acrobatic maneuvers that showed off their skills. Derek watched them carefully. 42 Gs, same as the capital ships. Their fighters are quick but not exceptional. Our pilots could fly circles around them. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "You seem confident." "I am confident. I trained with the fighter corps before I transferred to security. I know what our people can do. These Valoran pilots are good. Our pilots are better." The demonstration lasted nearly 2 hours. When it ended, the Valoran fleet returned to its original formation. The ships sat motionless, their golden hulls gleaming, waiting for the humans to respond with the expected awe and fear. Ambassador Zethrall appeared on the view screen again. His smile was wider now, filled with satisfaction. "You have seen what we offer, Ambassador Grant. Protection, security, safety. The Valoran Empire has guarded this region of space for 3,000 years. No enemy has ever threatened us. No species that accepts our friendship has ever been harmed." He leaned forward slightly, his 3 eyes fixed on Lisa. "All we ask in return is a simple trade agreement, access to certain resources your planet possesses, and permission to establish a small military presence in your system. Nothing significant. Just a few ships to ensure your safety. You would barely notice we are there." Lisa listened calmly. She had expected exactly this. The Valorans wanted to control humanity's solar system without firing a shot. They wanted to establish a foothold that would slowly expand until humanity was just another client species, dependent on Valoran protection and subject to Valoran rules. She took a slow breath and smiled. Ambassador Zethral, your demonstration was remarkable, truly impressive. Your fleet is magnificent, and your crews are clearly well-trained. Zethral's smile grew even wider. He was waiting for the surrender, the acceptance, the grateful submission that every other species had offered after witnessing Valoran power. However, Lisa continued, before we discuss the terms of any agreement, I believe it would be appropriate for us to reciprocate. The smile froze on Zethral's face. Reciprocate? You have shown us your fleet. It seems only fair that we show you ours. A gesture of mutual respect between potential partners. There was silence on the Valoran bridge. Admiral Vexthar stepped into view, his 4 arms crossed and his expression confused. Your fleet? He asked. You brought only a diplomatic vessel. Our sensors detect no other human ships in this system. Lisa maintained her pleasant smile. They are not in this system. They are waiting nearby. With your permission, I will summon them. Zethral and Vexthar exchanged glances. Neither of them seemed concerned. Why would they be? Humanity was a young species with primitive technology. Whatever ships they had could not possibly compare to 40 Valoran warships. Of course, Zethral said magnanimously. Please summon your fleet. We would be honored to observe your military capabilities. He was already imagining how embarrassing this would be for the humans. A handful of small patrol ships trying to match the glory of the Valoran armada. It would make the final negotiations even easier. Lisa nodded graciously. Thank you, Ambassador. Commander Cole, please transmit the signal. Derek picked up a communicator and spoke a single word. Daybreak. The signal flew out into space at the speed of light. It reached a relay station hidden in the asteroid belt. From there, it jumped through hyperspace to the coordinates where the Third Fleet was waiting. Lisa turned back to the view screen and watched Zethral's confident face. They should arrive in approximately 3 minutes, she said, and for the first time, something flickered in Zethral's golden eyes. Not fear, not yet, but the first small seed of doubt. Something was about to change. 3 minutes passed in silence. The Valoran fleet sat motionless in space, their golden hulls catching the light of the distant star. On the bridge of the eternal light, Admiral Vexthar watched his sensors with growing impatience. Nothing, he muttered. No hyperspace signatures, no approaching vessels. Perhaps their fleet got lost. The Valoran officers laughed. It was a comfortable sound, the laughter of beings who had never known real danger. They had seen the human diplomatic ship. It was small and fragile, a toy compared to their magnificent warships. Whatever the humans were bringing, it could not possibly be a threat. Ambassador Zethral allowed himself a small smile. The humans were stalling. They probably had a few patrol ships hiding somewhere, and now they were too embarrassed to show them. This was going even better than expected. Perhaps we should proceed with negotiations, Zethral suggested. If your fleet is delayed, Ambassador Grant, we can continue without them. On the Geneva, Lisa Grant shook her head slowly. They are not delayed. They are precisely on time. She pointed at the view screen. Look! Space tore itself apart. The first hyperspace breach was unlike anything the Valorans had ever seen. It was not the gentle ripple of energy that their own ships produced. It was a violent explosion of light and force, a wound ripped in the fabric of reality itself. The shockwave hit the Valoran fleet like a physical blow. Ships rocked on their stabilizers. Alarm bells rang across 40 vessels. Something emerged from the breach. It was black. Completely, utterly black. No gold decoration, no elegant curves, no artistic flourishes, just dark, angular plates of armor bolted together with brutal efficiency. Gun batteries covered every surface, row after row of weapons designed for only one purpose. The ship was enormous. It dwarfed the Valoran flagship the way a mountain dwarfs a hill. That is the USS Defiance, Lisa said calmly. Dreadnought class, 8 kilometers long, Primary armament includes 12 magnetic accelerator cannons capable of firing tungsten projectiles at 15% the speed of light. Secondary armament includes 300-point defense turrets and 90 missile tubes. Admiral Vexthar stared at his view screen. His 4 arms had dropped to his sides. His 3 eyes were wide with shock. 8 kilometers, he whispered. More breaches opened. Ship after ship poured into normal space. They came in waves, each arrival accompanied by another violent tear in reality. None of them were beautiful. None of them were elegant. They were machines built for war, covered in armor and weapons and nothing else. Battle cruisers arrived first. Each one was 3 kilometers long, bristling with cannons. Then came the destroyers, smaller but faster, moving into formation with mechanical precision. Carriers followed, their massive bays already opening to reveal the fighters stored inside. Support ships filled the gaps, tankers and repair vessels and hospital ships that existed only because humanity had learned that wars were long and bloody and required constant support. 63 vessels, Lisa continued. 4 dreadnoughts, 12 battlecruisers, 22 destroyers, 15 carriers, 10 support ships, total crew complement approximately 400,000 personnel. On the eternal light, silence had fallen. The laughter was gone. The confidence was gone. Every Valoran officer stared at their sensors, trying to understand what they were seeing. The human fleet took position opposite the Valoran armada. They moved without ceremony, without display, without any attempt to look impressive. They simply arranged themselves into a combat formation and stopped. Admiral Jack Morrison appeared on the view screen. He stood on the bridge of the Defiance, surrounded by officers who looked like they had been born fighting. He was not wearing a ceremonial uniform. He wore simple combat fatigues, the same clothes any soldier would wear into battle. "Ambassador Zethral," Jack said pleasantly. "Admiral Vexthar, I am Admiral Jack Morrison, commander of the Third Fleet. Ambassador Grant mentioned you wanted to see what humanity could offer to a partnership." Zethral found his voice. It took effort. "Admiral Morrison, your fleet is unexpected." "We prefer to be prepared," Jack replied. "The universe has taught us some hard lessons over the years. We learned to always bring enough firepower to handle any situation." Vexthar stepped forward. His pride was wounded, and wounded pride made him reckless. "Your ships are large, Admiral, but size is not everything. Our weapons technology is far superior. Our plasma cannons can burn through any armor." Jack smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Your plasma cannons are impressive at short range, but they lose effectiveness beyond 50,000 kilometers. They also require 6 seconds to recharge between shots." He paused. "Our main guns have an effective range of 300,000 kilometers. They can fire once every 2 seconds, and they do not use energy weapons." "What do they use?" "Metal. Very dense metal moving very fast," Jack nodded to someone off-screen. "Let me show you." The Defiance rotated slowly until one of its main guns faced an asteroid that had survived the Valoran demonstration. The gun was massive, a barrel running almost the entire length of the ship. Magnetic coils lined its surface, pulsing with barely contained energy. The gun fired. There was no flash of light, no beam of plasma, just a brief flicker as something left the barrel at impossible speed. The tungsten projectile, 90 tons of solid metal, crossed the distance to the asteroid in less than a second. The asteroid did not explode. It did not vaporize. The projectile punched straight through it, entering one side and exiting the other without slowing down. The asteroid cracked in half from the sheer force of the impact. The 2 pieces tumbled away, revealing a hole through the center that was perfectly round and absolutely clean. That projectile continued through 3 more asteroids before it lost momentum, Jack said conversationally. 90 tons of tungsten at 15% of light speed. Your shields cannot stop it. Your armor cannot stop it. Nothing can stop it except hitting something big enough to absorb all that energy." Vexthar said nothing. His face had gone pale. "Our carriers have also launched a demonstration," Jack continued. "Captain Amy Chen commands the Resolute. Her pilots are eager to show you what they can do." The carriers opened their bays fully. Fighters poured out in a flood of metal and fire. Hundreds of small craft scattered across space, moving so fast they were almost impossible to track. They did not fly in formation like the Valoran fighters had. Each pilot operated independently, choosing their own path, making their own decisions. They raced through the debris field left by the destroyed asteroids. They wove between tumbling rocks with centimeters to spare. They executed turns that should have killed their pilots instantly. 57 Gs, Lisa said quietly to Derek. "Our pilots can sustain 57 Gs in combat configuration." "How?" Derek asked, though he already knew the answer. "Surgical enhancement, genetic modification, 12 years of training, and a willingness to push themselves beyond any reasonable limit." Lisa watched a fighter piloted by Lieutenant Scott Palmer skim past the eternal light so close that his wingtip almost scraped the hull. "Our pilots are not just good. They are the best in the galaxy, because they have to be, because anything less means death." The fighter demonstration continued for 15 minutes. When it ended, the pilots returned to their carriers, and the human fleet sat waiting, silent and dark, and absolutely terrifying. Jack Morrison looked at the view screen. His expression was calm, almost friendly. "So, Ambassador Zethrol, shall we discuss the terms of our partnership?" For the first time in 3,000 years, a Valoran ambassador had no idea what to say. The bridge of the eternal light had never been so quiet. Officers sat frozen at their stations, staring at sensor readings they could not believe. Admiral Vexithar stood motionless, his 4 arms hanging limp at his sides. Ambassador Zethrol gripped the railing in front of him so tightly that his violet knuckles had turned white. The human fleet filled their view screen. 63 ships, dark and angular and covered in weapons. They did not move. They did not need to move. Their presence alone was enough. "Admiral," one of the sensor officers said hesitantly, "I am reading their targeting systems. They have solutions locked on every ship in our fleet." Vexthar turned slowly. "Every ship?" "Yes, Admiral. Every ship, every shield generator, every weapon emplacement. They acquired targets in less than 30 seconds. If they fire, we will lose half our fleet before we can respond." The words hung in the air like poison. On the Geneva, Lisa Grant watched the Valoran flagship through the observation window. She could imagine what was happening inside. The confusion, the fear, the sudden realization that everything they believed about their place in the universe was wrong. "They are scared," Derek said quietly. "They should be," Lisa replied. "But we are not here to scare them. We are here to negotiate." Admiral Jack Morrison appeared on the view screen again. His face was calm, almost gentle. He understood what the Valorans were feeling. He had seen that same expression on the faces of enemies before. The moment when confidence shattered and reality set in. "I want to be clear about something," Jack said. "We are not here to fight. We did not bring this fleet to threaten you. We brought it to show you the truth." Zethrol found his voice. It was thin and strained. "The truth?" "The truth about humanity. You came here expecting to find a primitive species, young, weak, easy to control. You expected us to see your fleet and fall to our knees in gratitude." Jack shook his head slowly. "That is not who we are." He pressed a button, and the main view screen of the eternal light changed. Images began to appear, historical records from human archives translated into Valoran language. The first images showed Earth 200 years ago, cities burning, mushroom clouds rising over continents. The colony wars, when humanity had turned its weapons on itself and nearly destroyed everything. "We almost killed ourselves," Jack said. "The colony wars lasted 20 years. Billions died. When it ended, we were broken. But we survived. New images appeared. Alien ships, twisted and organic, descending on human worlds. The Keth swarm. Creatures that did not negotiate, did not communicate, did not want anything except to consume. 40 years ago, they found us. The Keth swarm. They came without warning and attacked without mercy. They destroyed 12 colonies in the first month. 16 billion people died before we could even organize a response. The images showed human ships fighting against the swarm, desperate battles in the darkness between stars, entire fleets sacrificed to buy time for civilians to escape, men and women dying by the thousands to protect strangers they would never meet. We fought them for 5 years. We lost more people than I can count. We came within weeks of extinction at least twice." Jack paused. "But we won. We drove them back. We destroyed their hive ships. We survived." The images faded and Jack's face filled the screen again. "Every ship in this fleet exists because something was trying to kill us. Every weapon was designed because we needed it to stay alive. Every pilot learned to push themselves beyond any reasonable limit because anything less meant death." His voice was soft, but carried absolute conviction. "We did not become strong because we wanted to conquer anyone. We became strong because we refused to die." Silence followed his words. Admiral Vexthar stepped forward slowly. The arrogance was gone from his face. In its place was something that might have been respect. "Your species has suffered greatly," he said carefully. "Yes, we have. And that suffering made us what we are." Jack smiled slightly. "We do not want to add to anyone else's suffering. We want peace. We want trade. We want friendship. But we will not accept any relationship where we are treated as inferior. We will not allow anyone to control our worlds or threaten our people. Those days are over." Zethral released his grip on the railing and straightened his posture. He was beginning to understand. These humans were not primitives pretending to be powerful. They were survivors, fighters, a species forged in fire and hardened by pain. "Your demonstration was impressive," Zethral admitted. "Your weapons are clearly superior to ours. Your pilots are faster. Your ships are larger." He hesitated. "But I must ask, if you are so powerful, why do you want peace? Why not simply take what you want?" Lisa Grant answered before Jack could speak. "Because we remember what war costs. We buried too many friends. We lost too many worlds. Power without wisdom is just destruction. We have enough enemies in the galaxy. We would rather make friends." The words struck something deep in Zethral's mind. For 3,000 years, the Valoran Empire had used power to dominate. They had never considered that true strength might be choosing not to use it. "I believe I understand," he said slowly. "You are offering us a choice, partnership or conflict, but you prefer partnership." "We do," Lisa confirmed. "We have nothing to prove to anyone. We know who we are and what we can do. Now we want to build something better than just a fleet of warships. We want alliances based on respect, trade agreements based on fairness, a future where species work together instead of dominating each other." Vexthar made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. "You speak of respect and fairness. But your fleet could destroy us right now. You hold all the power in this negotiation." Jack nodded. "Yes, we do. And we are choosing not to use it. That is the point. Power means nothing if you cannot control it. The Valoran Empire has power. You have used it to dominate others for 3,000 years. We are showing you a different path." "A path of equals," Zethral murmured. "Exactly. A path where no one kneels, where partnerships are genuine, where both sides benefit." Jack leaned forward slightly. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Ambassador. The Keth swarm is still out there, recovering. Other threats exist that neither of us has discovered yet. Working together, we are stronger. Divided, we are vulnerable. The logic was undeniable. Zethral saw it clearly now. The humans were not just offering friendship. They were offering survival. In a universe full of dangers, having allies like humanity could mean the difference between existence and extinction. I need to consult with my government, Zethral said finally. What you propose is unprecedented. The Valoran Empire has never negotiated as equals with anyone. Take all the time you need, Lisa replied. We are patient. We have waited 200 years to find our place among the stars. We can wait a little longer. The communication channel closed. The Valoran bridge erupted in quiet conversation as officers tried to process what had just happened. Vexthar turned to Zethral. His voice was barely a whisper. What do we do? Zethral stared at the human fleet through the view screen. 63 ships, dark and silent and absolutely terrifying, but also controlled, disciplined. They could have attacked at any moment. They had chosen not to. We listen, Zethral said. For the first time in 3,000 years, we listen to someone else. 6 months passed. The negotiations were difficult. 3,000 years of Valoran tradition did not change overnight. There were arguments, disagreements, moments when it seemed like everything would collapse and the two species would become enemies instead of allies. But slowly, carefully, progress was made. Ambassador Lisa Grant led the human delegation with patience and determination. She never raised her voice. She never made threats. She simply repeated the same message over and over again. Equality or nothing, partnership or independence, humanity would accept no other terms. Ambassador Zethral discovered that negotiating with equals was harder than dominating inferiors. He could not simply make demands and expect compliance. He had to listen. He had to compromise. He had to accept that the humans had valid perspectives that deserved consideration. It was exhausting and frustrating and entirely new. But it was also rewarding. For the first time in his long career, Zethral experienced genuine respect from a negotiating partner. The humans did not fear him. They did not hate him. They treated him as a colleague working toward a common goal. When he made good arguments, they acknowledged them. When he made mistakes, they corrected him without mockery. It was strange and wonderful and completely different from anything he had known before. Admiral Vexithar spent those 6 months learning everything he could about human military technology. What he discovered amazed him. Human ships were not just larger than Valoran vessels. They were fundamentally different in design philosophy. Valoran ships were built to intimidate. Human ships were built to survive. Every human warship had redundant systems for critical functions. Multiple backup power plants. Secondary bridge controls. Emergency life support distributed throughout the hull. If one part of the ship was destroyed, the rest could keep fighting. Valoran ships were centralized and efficient. Human ships were decentralized and resilient. They expect to be hit, Vexithar explained to his officers. They design their ships assuming that enemies will damage them. So they build vessels that can absorb damage and keep operating. It is a philosophy born from desperate battles and near-extinction events. He also studied human combat tactics. They were brutal and effective. Human commanders did not seek elegant victories. They sought total victories. They used overwhelming force, coordinated strikes, and relentless aggression. They did not give enemies time to recover or regroup. Fighting them would be a nightmare, Vexthar admitted privately. We would lose. Perhaps not quickly, but we would lose. On the human side, Admiral Jack Morrison spent those months building relationships with his Valoran counterparts. He invited Valoran officers aboard the Defiance for tours and training exchanges. He shared tactical knowledge freely, holding nothing back. He wanted the Velorans to understand that humanity was committed to real partnership, not just words on a treaty. Captain Amy Chen hosted Veloran pilots on the Resolute. She let them fly human fighters under supervision. The experience humbled them. Human fighters were faster, more agile, and more demanding than anything they had encountered. The acceleration alone would have killed Veloran pilots without the surgical enhancements that humans considered standard. "Your people are extraordinary," one Veloran pilot said after his first training flight. "I have flown for 100 years. I have never felt so slow and clumsy." Amy smiled. "You are not slow or clumsy. You are simply trained for different conditions. Our pilots learned to push beyond normal limits because our enemies did not give us any choice. In time, we can share our enhancement techniques. Your pilots could be just as capable." The idea of human-enhanced Veloran pilots was discussed at the highest levels of both governments. It represented something unprecedented: true military cooperation between species, shared technology, combined fleets, a partnership that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Finally, after 6 months of work, the treaty was ready. The signing ceremony took place aboard the Geneva, the same diplomatic vessel that had started everything. Representatives from both species gathered in the main conference room. Human officers in their plain uniforms stood beside Veloran officials in their ceremonial robes. The contrast was striking, but no longer uncomfortable. Lisa Grant and Zethral sat at the center of the table. A single document lay between them. Written in both human and Veloran languages, it was called the Accord of Equals, and it represented something that had never existed in Veloran history. "Before we sign," Zethral said quietly, "I want to say something." Lisa nodded. "Please." Zethral looked around the room. His 3 golden eyes moved from face to face, human and Veloran alike. "6 months ago, I came here expecting to add another client species to our empire. I thought you would see our fleet and surrender. I thought you were primitive and weak and easily controlled." He paused. "I was wrong. About everything." The room was silent. "Your species is remarkable. Not because of your weapons, though those are terrifying. Not because of your ships, though those are impressive. You are remarkable because of your spirit. You suffered things that would have destroyed any other species. You nearly killed yourselves. You were nearly killed by others, and instead of giving up, you became stronger. You became something new." Zethral reached for a pen. His hands were steady. "The Veloran Empire has ruled for 3,000 years because no one could challenge us. We became proud and arrogant and stagnant. We stopped growing because we did not need to grow. Meeting humanity has changed that. You have reminded us that the universe is dangerous and that strength alone is not enough. Wisdom matters, resilience matters, the willingness to adapt and change and learn matters." He signed the treaty with a flourish of elegant script. "I sign this accord not because we fear you, though any sensible being should fear what your species can do. I sign it because I believe in what it represents: a better future, a partnership of equals, something worth building together." Lisa took the pen when he offered it. She looked at the document for a long moment. Humanity spent 2 centuries learning hard lessons about survival. We learned that violence without purpose is just destruction. We learned that power without wisdom is dangerous. We learned that the greatest victories are the ones where no one dies. She signed her name beneath his. We wanted friends, not subjects, allies, not servants, partners, not clients. Today, we have achieved that. The Veloran Empire and the United Earth Government are now bound by something stronger than fear. We are bound by mutual respect and shared purpose. Applause filled the room. Human and Veloran hands came together in celebration. Officers who had been suspicious of each other 6 months ago now smiled and shook hands like old friends. Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the back of the room, watching quietly. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan stood beside him. "Do you think it will last?" Kate asked. Jack considered the question. He watched Zethral and Lisa laughing together over some shared joke. He watched Vexthar discussing tactics with Captain Amy Chen. He watched two species that could have been enemies choosing to be friends instead. "I think it has a chance," he said finally. "That is more than we had 6 months ago." Outside the windows of the Geneva, the Third Fleet hung in space. 63 warships, dark and silent, and ready for anything. They had come prepared for war and found something better instead. In the centuries that followed, the Accord of Equals transformed the galaxy. Human and Veloran ships patrolled together. Human technology merged with Veloran resources. New threats arose, and they were met by combined fleets that no enemy could withstand. Historians would later say that the moment humanity stunned the Veloran Empire was the moment everything changed. A young species, forged in fire and hardened by suffering, had refused to kneel. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy that true strength was not about domination. It was about standing tall and offering your hand in friendship, even when you could have crushed anyone who refused.